During a third special session, the Florida Legislature passed sweeping immigration reform. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis approved a package of sweeping immigration bills, ending a bitter showdown with the state Republican legislative leaders over how to best carry out President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. DeSantis' approval of the bills, which Florida lawmakers passed largely along party lines, comes after legislative leaders brokered a compromise with input from the governor and the White House.
We here in Florida have a responsibility to be strong partners with the Trump administration as it seeks to restore the rule of law, remove illegal aliens from our communities, and protect public safety.
The bill includes funding for immigration enforcement, detention facilities, and mandates the death penalty for immigrants who are in the country illegally and commit capital offenses. It also removes a state benefit that lets Florida students who are in the country without legal authorization qualify for in-state tuition at public colleges and universities. Central Florida Public Media's Rick Brunson breaks down Florida's new immigration enforcement laws. That's ahead on The Wrap. The big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. The Florida Legislature voted Thursday to pass a comprehensive, nearly $300 million bill package designed to curb illegal immigration in the state. As Central Florida Public Media's Rick Brunson reports, Governor Ron DeSantis quickly signed the bill after it was passed.
Lawmakers in the House voted along party lines to pass the finalized bill that would create a state board of immigration enforcement and counsel to provide support to federal efforts to combat illegal immigration in Florida. The bill appropriates $250 million to hire and train new law enforcement officers in the state to help federal agents with immigration enforcement. It creates a new $48 million detention center in North Florida and stiffens penalties for immigrants in the country illegally who are convicted of crimes. The bill also ends in-state tuition for the 6,500 college students in Florida who are not U.S. citizens, called Dreamers. Democrats tried to add last-minute amendments to protect the tuition benefit, to protect Florida schools from immigration raids, and eliminate the mandatory death penalty for capital crimes, but all were rejected. Republicans said passage of the bill was a victory for public safety in Florida. Rick Brunson, Central Florida Public Media.
Amidst national concerns over bird flu and egg prices, Claremont residents can now raise up to 5 chickens, but the new ordinance comes with a flock of conditions. Central Florida Public Media's Luis Alfredo Garcia reports on what prospective chicken owners can expect after this week's City Council decision.
The city will only allow residents to keep female chickens on developed single-family properties, and a chicken coop is required to keep them. The city of Claremont will not allow the sale of eggs from the backyard chickens. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the average price per dozen eggs last month reached $4.95. It's a new record high since tracking began in 1980. The avian flu is the main driver of these rising egg prices. Groveland's Harrison Creek farm owner Kimberly Harrison says those looking to take advantage of the new law need to keep disease and other chicken-raising concerns in mind.
A lot of people will find that it's a lot of work and a little bit more stressful to keep chickens than to just have these little things run around and be cute.
Despite the ordinance, City Council says homeowners association rules will apply in certain subdivisions, and it's up to the association to allow the chickens. Luis Alfredo Garcia, Central Florida Public Media.
Florida's troubled citrus industry this week received an additional reduction in its projected production for the current season. The U.S. Department of Agriculture released a report projecting that Florida will produce 11.5 million boxes of oranges, down from a January projection of 12 million. The new projection is down 23% from the start of the season in October. It's also below the nearly 18 million boxes filed in the 2023-2024 season. Florida produced 244 million boxes of oranges in 1998 when the industry was at its peak, but it has suffered for the past 2 decades from deadly citrus greening disease and it faced hurricanes, freezes, and encroaching development. These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Orlando's largest-scale interactive arts installation is back. Immerse will close down the streets of downtown Orlando, and dozens of creative groups will participate.
We are so fortunate here in Central Florida to have so many world-class artists and arts organizations that they don't have to fly. They can just travel a few miles and be downtown to join us for the event.
Hear more about Immerse. That's on our podcast Spotlight. Get it wherever you get this podcast. After 3 special sessions in less than a month, Florida legislators passed a sweeping package of immigration bills aimed at increasing enforcement of illegal immigration in the state. The governor quickly signed the bills Thursday. The package contains funding for new state jobs related to immigration enforcement, reimbursements for leasing detention facilities, and increasing the penalties for all crimes committed by immigrants who are in the country without authorization, and would create a new crime of entering the state after coming to the U.S. illegally. Republican State Senator Don Gates says the legislation will make Florida a safer place.
Illegal immigrants who shouldn't have been here in the first place have committed crimes that devastate families and victimize Floridians. It is our job to deal with this issue.
But Democratic State Representative Anna Escamani says the legislation won't help most Floridians and is just an attempt to appease President Trump.
They're going to sign this bill and take a victory parade while our immigrant communities are going to continue to be targeted and live in fear.
The measures also remove a state benefit that lets Florida students who are in the country without legal authorization qualify for in-state tuition at public colleges and universities. Engage host Sharon Stone spoke with Central Florida Public Media's Rick Brunson about the new laws and the impacts here in Central Florida.
Well, there are a lot of items in this legislation. Here's what it does. The biggest thing is it creates a power-sharing arrangement for who runs immigration enforcement in the state. It creates a state board of immigration enforcement made up of the governor, the commissioner of agriculture, the attorney general, and the state's chief financial officer. And all of the decisions of this board must be unanimous under this bill. It also creates a state immigration enforcement council made up of law enforcement, so sheriffs, police chiefs, FDLE agents appointed by the State Board of Immigration Enforcement to provide advice on immigration enforcement. So this board would serve as a liaison with federal authorities for joint operations on immigration enforcement in the state. The bill also authorizes an agreement between the federal government and Florida where the Department of Homeland Security would provide training to state law enforcement officers in assisting federal agents to enforce immigration law. And there's more. It appropriates $250 million to hire and train new law enforcement officers in the state to help federal agents with immigration enforcement, and it provides $1,000 bonuses to law enforcement officers who are involved in Homeland Security immigration raids. It also pays for a new $48 million detention center in North Florida, somewhere in the I-10 corridor, to keep unauthorized immigrants who have been arrested. It also requires pretrial detention for immigrants suspected of committing felonies. It makes it a felony to enter or re-enter Florida illegally. And this one was a real debate point, requires the death penalty for any undocumented immigrant who commits a capital crime, such as murder or rape of a minor. The bill also tries to target transnational gangs. And then here, the last point, it removes in-state tuition for the 6,500 Florida and college university students who are not U.S. citizens or legal residents.
That last issue that you just mentioned, Rick, there was a lot of debate in the second special session. What about this time around?
Well, over the last 2 days, this part of the bill particularly has brought the most passionate debate on the floor of the House and the Senate and in their various committees. Democrats have tried to amend the bill to save in-state tuition for those students who are enrolled right now and would lose this benefit on July 1st, this summer, and then they would see their tuition for the fall quadruple in price. And Democrats argue this would cause many of them to have to drop out of school. Democrats argued that it's unfair to pull the rug out from under these students while they're in college, and that the legislature was going back on a promise that they made 10 years ago when Republicans and Democrats voted to approve in-state tuition for these students who are often called dreamers. Senator Jason Pizzo, a Democrat who represents parts of Broward and Miami-Dade, where the majority of these 6,500 students attend college, sponsored this amendment. And Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith of Orlando spoke in defense of the amendment.
And I do have a message for those dreamers who are here in the gallery or those who are listening at home. You are not illegal because no person is illegal. You are Floridians. You belong here.
But Senator Randy Fine, the Melbourne Republican who was a co-sponsor of the bill, said providing in-state tuition to students who may have grown up in Florida but are not U.S. citizens is not fair to students from Florida or other states who are citizens.
The dreamers that I worry about are the 2,000 students we know are not going to a Florida university of their choice because an illegal immigrant is there. What about their dreams?
In the end, Pizzo's amendment was voted down 22-14, and overall the bill went forward as presented by Republicans.
Central Florida Public Media's Rick Brunson, thank you so much for breaking all this down.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
That was Central Florida Public Media's Rick Brunson speaking with Engage host Sharon Stone. That's it for the wrap this week. Next week, Central Florida's Haitian community is reacting to changes to immigration policy at both the state and national level. We'll unpack those concerns and how community leaders are responding. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from News Director LaToya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.